welcome to you all at home.
You've still got a chance to win this race, haven't you?
Just try. I wanna be the only one to make it through the
Hey guys, Dre here, back at it once again with another episode of Dre TV for you here, and a brand new video for you. I kind of took my own opening catchphrase, that's kind of weird. But on this episode of Dre TV, we're going to be talking about the Formula 1 Grand Prix of Bahrain 2015 edition. And yeah, it was a interesting affair. It wasn't a particularly exciting race, but it did have a couple of tense moments, and it did have a couple of interesting bits of action that was thrown in to spice things up just a little bit, which automatically made it better than China, so hooray! Like, how can anyone complain? No surprise, Lewis Hamilton took the win, his second Bahrain Grand Prix victory. He's 36th in his career, putting him just 5 behind his idol Ayrton Senna. And it was I'd say a comfortable win for Lewis Hamilton. I don't think Hamilton at any point looked like he was under any real pressure. He built up a 5-second lead in the first stint. It actually strangely had vanished. It seemed like running longer on the tyre seemed to really hurt people, as his 5-second lead had evaporated after his first pit stop. But Hamilton always looked like he was faster than Nico Rosberg over the course of the race, and he definitely looked like he was under any real kind of pressure. It was his teammate Nico Rosberg who was really in the wars for most of the race, in the sense of he lost out on 2 undercuts to Sebastian Vettel during the race, and Rosberg had to work pretty hard to pass Vettel both of those times. We had a couple of nice, scraps between the two of them, but Rosberg, it's nice to see that Rosberg showed a bit of fire out there on track and was able to, be aggressive, and, he couldn't get the move done if it came down to it. So, well done to Nico Rosberg for, showing some fire, which is, I know a lot of people have a reputation of calling Rosberg boring and, not particularly exciting and a little bit soft around the edges, but that was a gutsy performance from Nico Rosberg, and he had to deal with a big Ferrari threat, and he had to do most of the blocking for his teammate there, and Rosberg did a pretty solid job of that as he eventually finished in 3rd. But the surprise Ferrari of the day was Kimi Raikkonen, the Iceman cometh, so to speak, and it was a very strong performance from Kimi Raikkonen. I think Raikkonen's been due a performance like this season so far. He was very unlucky in the first 2 rounds to have both races affected by things outside of his control. And this was a great performance from Kimi. His medium tyre pace was excellent. At one point he was the fastest man on track, as the top 3 runners, the 2 Mercs and Sebastian Vettel, were all just taking time out of each other by trying to go head-to-head to each other on the option tyre, and it didn't really work. Raikkonen did his option stint at the end on the fastest rubber. He was chasing down Rosberg at a rate of knots towards the end, and then with 2 laps to go, Nico Rosberg had a brake-by-wire fault failure of some kind, which meant he overcooked his brakes going into turn 1 and ran wide and basically made second place easy pickings for Kimi Raikkonen in the end, Rosberg being robbed of an opportunity to be able to defend it, unlike what half of Twitter was thinking, like, oh, Rosberg bottled it. No, the brakes failed. Bit of a difference there, internet. Stop trying to throw Rosberg under the bus just because he's not as good as Hamilton, for God's sake. I hate when people do that, but still, I mean, he was my driver of the day, Kimi Raikkonen. I think it was an excellent job, and a well-managed. Raikkonen seems to be very good in his tyres, Raikkonen, so far this season. He made his aggressive 2-stopper work perfectly, caught Rosberg at the end, and I think that was about the maximum available. If the race was 1 lap longer, with Hamilton's brake-by-wire fault also kicking in on the final lap, Raikkonen probably would have won. So in that sense, Mercedes were very unlucky, but also, I guess, very lucky at the same time in that regard. So a 1-3 for Mercedes, they'll take that. Ferrari 2 and 5, as Sebastian Vettel had a bit of a scrappy day at the office by his standards. I know he had a brilliant qualifying lap to put himself in second place on the grid. One of the best qualifying laps you will see this season, given how we all know Mercs are so much better than Ferrari over 1 lap. I think that's the closest anyone's got to Mercedes, besides the freak Austria qualifying from last year, to be faster or to be as close to a Mercedes on raw pace at their best. So Vettel started second, eventually finished in 5th. Not a good day for him. I mean, he ran right a couple of times, he had a couple of mistakes, lost out to Rosberg, and was on an inferior strategy by the looks of it, and then ran wide. Had a couple of points, and one time on the final corner and damaged his front wing as a result. Had to change it around, and then when he came out, he was stuck behind Valtteri Bottas. And these last 2 races with the whole Hamilton backing Rosberg into Vettel incident, and now Vettel not being able to pass Bottas, seems to be a walking advert for why dirty air needs to stop being a thing in Formula 1, because everybody knows that the Ferrari was faster on raw speed than the Williams, but the Williams' top-end speed and the lack of grip he can get out of corners because of the dirty air effect meant it was very hard for him to pass. It's not like the Mercedes, which we all know is the fastest car and is very well planted with its aero. It's not quite the same thing here. So, you know, a difficult race for Sebastian, but still I think he'll take the 10 points in 5th. Not a total disaster, just a bit of a sloppy race more than anything else. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, looking at the way things played out during the race, it may have the broken wing only cost him really 1 spot, so I don't think he'll be too harsh on himself given the Grand Prix. And a nice performance from Valtteri Bottas in 4th, a little bit more than what Williams were expecting, more than likely. The difficult problem is with all this is that it's a very predictable time in Formula 1 right now. It looks like Mercedes still are the best overall car and package. Ferrari, if they can play alternate strategies, might be able to figure into the mix, but more often than not, they're just not on that same level yet. I'm still not buying Ferrari as a consistent threat to Mercedes yet, not when Hamilton's in this kind of form. Hamilton looks as good as he's ever driven a car at the moment, and I'm stunned at how easily he's slapping Rosberg around at the moment, and right now, he's looking borderline invincible. He's looking like the same Sebastian Vettel we got in 2013, where he looked almost, well, literally untouchable in the second half of that season. It's looking like the same thing is happening again here at the moment, and with 3 weeks to go before the European season starts, it's looking ominous, especially with Williams finishing 42 seconds off the win in 4th place. Williams are a long way back at the moment, and it's looking like GP predictors are looking very predictable at the moment in the sense of, you know, it's going to be some combination of the Mercedes and the Ferraris in the front 4, and then Williams 5 and 6, and then 7 to 10 is a little bit more messy, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. As Daniel Ricciardo finished a very nice 6th place, despite the fact his engine gave out literally over the line. His engine expired, and it gets from bad to worse for Red Bull and Daniel Ricciardo, who is going to suffer yet more engine penalties as this season goes on, more than likely, because I think that was his 4th engine that went up in smoke there over the line, and Renault is going to be just absolutely livid after this one again. And it goes further down as well, with Toro Rosso suffering a double DNF. I think Carlos Sainz had some kind of suspension problem, I'm not sure on that one. And Max Verstappen did not finish either after what was already looking like a poor race after having to change his front wing after contact on lap 1. This is the interesting thing about Formula 1 right now, is that the front 3, we all know what's going on. Could anybody actually literally rank teams 4 through 9 right now? It's all up all over the place. Let me explain. Toro Rosso has been beating the big brother Red Bull factory team for the last couple of rounds, and then they take a double DNF. Kvyat qualified in 17th for this Grand Prix, but still finished in 9th, with Red Bull's Ricciardo finishing in 6th. Force India had a really good qualifying with Hülkenberg in 8th, but he fell to 13th, and Perez got in the points into 8th place. We were all looking interesting at Fernando Alonso after qualifying in 14th, when he finished 11th. He was just outside the points again. So is McLaren making some progress? What about Lotus? Grosjean has had back-to-back 7th places, and Pastor's been extremely unlucky so far this season to have 0 points to his name. He lost out again due to some brake issues in the pits on his final stop, and Maldonado was looking very fast indeed during that Grand Prix. Then we have Sauber, who have scored points in 2 different races twice now, but looked poor in Bahrain, finishing I think 12th and 14th. So who's the best of the midfield teams at the moment? The midfield is a complete jumbled mess at the moment right now, and we're still waiting for that to settle down. I think Red Bull are still probably the 4th best team on raw speed, but their reliability is seriously costing them at the moment, and it's going to hurt down the road when they have to start replacing engines and taking penalties in that concern. A lot of people sort of thought we were going to go back to 5 engines for the season. The FIA did not approve it, so we're still on the 4 engine limit at the moment. So it's looking a little bit all over the place in the midfield, and that's going to be interesting. And that's where a lot of the action is at the moment. Felipe Massa dropped into that mix as well with a damaged rear of his car after tangling with Maldonado. Massa had a damaged car and he only finished in 10th. He was a lap down and he was scrapping with the midfield guys like Felipe Nasr and things like that. So it was an interesting race in the midfield perspective, and we're still kind of waiting for that to shuffle itself out. Overall, I thought it was a decent race. It wasn't a particularly great race. I think the problem we've had as fans for this so far is that we seem to be overrating Ferrari's influence on the top, and I also think I think this race had an unfair beating going into it because people were comparing it to last year's race, which was a classic. A little bit of an overrated classic, but still a classic nonetheless. It was always going to be unlikely that this year was going to match last year's race, which is a shame, but that's just the way it is at the moment, basically. And yeah, I think it was a 6 out of 10 level kind of race. It wasn't bad. I wouldn't watch it again if I had to in my free time. But that's how I look at it at the moment, basically. So let me know what you guys thought of Bahrain. I'd love to hear your opinions as always. And thanks very much for commenting and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.